Defense and foreign policy. Thank you for making time.
Thank you, Fatia.
This has been a big story in the continent. The three countries leaving or quitting ECOWAS after 49 years. What do you make of this?
Fatia, we need to fundamentally understand the implication of this on Africa.
Right.
Number one, Africa cannot move any further without internal capacity development within Africa. Secondly, Africa must be able to be responsive for its own woes. What is happening here is when you look at the history of Francophone and Anglophone, Francophone tends to be very fragile, very vulnerable, and that means the French did not do a good job in managing the base by the time they got independent. Secondly, what we call neocolonialism. France continued to have a stranglehold on their former colonies, and so that they were not able to go out and develop, for instance, like Kenya, South Africa, and the rest, which are Anglophone. And then we also looking at the growing of autocrats, dictators, which are more prominent in the Francophone countries. And Sahel region is a very prominent area. So the implication is for the entire continent of Africa. What is my reading is that Russia is now waiting to go in. Okay, Russia is training about 20,000 people, military, to go and replace Wagner. Russia is not going in to develop capacity for Africa and help them. Russia is going in for the interests of Russia. And that's what we need to understand.
Right, we're going to come back to that conversation about Russia and France. But I want us to talk about, the three countries. One, the three countries they had military coups, at least the past years. They're under sanctions by ECOWAS and also suspended from the African Union. Do you think they're right to actually take that step of quitting ECOWAS?
Well, you see, they're what you call at this point rogue states. They're run by dictators, military dictators, who take a decision on their own for their best interest. Their best interest is to stay and run unconstitutional government for a while, where they accumulate wealth and destroy the rest of the people. So the most important thing is the Africans need to be very consistent about saying we will not trade with you and it will not be business as usual until we have a constitutional government back then.
But one of the claims the three countries actually have is that the organization that is ECOWAS failed to assist the states when it comes to fighting terrorism and just insecurity in the region. Is that also something that's justified?
No, you see, it is very easy to jump and excuse yourself for other reason. The point is every Africa is struggling with the issue of security. You can see we're fighting Al-Shabaab here. Boko Haram is on the West Africa, and the growing insecurity because of poverty and all other needs, including Congo, which need to be fulfilled. So the point is that is not good enough reason. And one of the things I understand, which is very correctly, those countries were run by autocrats who were out of touch with the people. So throwing them out probably was a popular move. But you cannot justify that ECOWAS has not met, since 1975, has not met its need. When ECOWAS just growing, the three countries are part of ECOWAS. The question is, what have they contributed to ECOWAS? And so you cannot, Nigeria cannot just boot itself out and say we are not getting what we need. What we need is a sacrifice, step by step, until we have the capacity to manage our own. And nobody else is going to do it.
Right. If we just take a step back,
Yes.
and look at ECOWAS, I mean, it has 15 countries, and the whole idea is to promote regional integration, especially through free movement and trade.
Yes.
Do you think since 1975 ECOWAS has actually played that role?
There is I don't want to call it a breath of fresh air, but there is a change of wind, where we are saying Africa need to take care of itself, and that has to be a mindset. Like South Korea, mindset that nobody else is going to help Africa. And that is going to be a toil, very tough going forward. And you can see there is improvement of trade among the East Africa and West Africa, among the ECOWAS country. You can see how well Nigeria is beginning to do. And those countries that are really part and parcel of that 15 member state are improving based on data that you can see. They may not be as moving as fast as possible, but these people, the three countries, were impacted by constant chaos of terrorism. And the French were not able to help. And I think that created a lot of animosities. And those people want change now. That change is not going to happen now, and it's not going to happen from outside. Every single person has to contribute.
You know, also something interesting is that these three countries formed the Alliance of Sahel States.
Yes.
Do you think they can survive by themselves?
They cannot survive by themselves. And that's the reason Russia is going in. And Russia is not going to go in to quell the crisis and poverty and everything. Russia is going in to sell them vintage weapon that Russia has produced for years. And then what Russia will do is extract all their gold, diamonds, and everything back to Russia. The same thing Wagner was doing. That's what Putin, Russia under Putin, is what's going to happen. This is not the old Soviet Union who fought hand in hand with the rest of the Africa. So I don't expect it to be any better. What Africans need, AU, need to draw the line and say, so long as you don't follow the rules, the rule is stand to constitutional mandate of the people. We'll give you time to do that. But you cannot go in and then break away from a regional group. We're supposed to be working together for the interest of Africa and say you are going to survive your... That area is one of the poorest area in the continent of Africa, ravaged by climate change. They have to have help from AU, from European Union, from UN, from America, and everybody. But under multinational umbrella. And this is not going to happen. Russia will not help.
Yeah, because on the other side, you see the three countries have been colonized by France.
Yes.
When you look at it, where do you think France stands at the moment? Because they still had a base in these particular countries, but now you can see Russia slowly coming in, like you're talking about.
No, like I say, France really failed in building capacity of each of these countries. You can see from a number of Francophone countries around Africa. They're going through the turmoil of capacity development, of governance. And how is this happen? French was interested in France. You know, and that's what, you know, I'm not giving excuse, because Kenyans are only interested in Kenya. US the same. But France has a role, a historical role, to at least create capacity development so that these people can fight off the terrorists. But, you know, they have not done that. So Russia has gone in in order to occupy the vacuum. And what I'm saying loudly is that Russia is not going to help. Ultimately, it's not going to help. Poverty will continue to ravage the country. Agriculture will not improve. And the lifestyle, education, healthcare, none of them will improve.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the three countries, Burkina Faso, they have, the leader is Captain Ibrahim Traore. Mali is a Colonel Assimi, and in Niger is General Abdurrahmane, and we had seen the developments that were happening in that country. What do you think these countries should do at this particular point, or do you think they can support each other at least?
They cannot support each other when they cannot support themselves. You know, if you cannot support yourself, you can't support me. Is that right?
That's true.
So the issue for them surviving by themselves will not happen. What we will see is another coup to overthrow them and bring somebody else, and another one by somebody else. What they need to do now that the French are out is to work under the umbrella of AU, return to constitutional government, work with AU to return to constitutional government, focus on capacity development and constitutional government. There cannot be any development without security. So all those, because if they now have a timetable to move into constitutional government, then the UN has right to go and help them. AU has right, European Union, not only France, but European Union as a whole can go in and have programs and together with the rest of Africa, that will then we will begin to realize some development element.
But do you think they'll be able to even take the constitutional route where now they can have a civilian government? Because looking back at history, like Burkina Faso with Thomas Sankara and all that, do you think they'll be able to ever establish a civilian rule away from what they have?
I think it is possible. Thomas Sankara had some brilliant ideas, you know, but they were so ahead of the people. People could not understand, because Thomas Sankara wanted to eliminate the role that France was playing on their country, energize the people to be able to take care of themselves. That's what Thomas Sankara was talking about. But you cannot do that unless you turn to constitutional government. I must say, democracy is not a perfect government, like Sir Winston Churchill said, but there's nothing else that is better than democracy. We have Xi Jinping running China the way he wants. Putin is running Russia the way he wants. And therefore, it's going to crack at one point because the people don't have the voice. The US became the most powerful country in the world because of democracy. It is the people. And you cannot circuit it to get to anything better unless you maintain that.
You know, ECOWAS was actually supposed to travel to Niamey in Niger to discuss some of the sanctions that are in the country, but they gave an excuse of they developed technical problems. But it has not entirely, ECOWAS has not entirely come out and said this is what they think about the whole situation. What do you think ECOWAS should do, in your opinion, to restore this situation?
Well, you know, earlier on, there was a Nigeria-led force that was supposed to go in and literally force the government back on the track of constitutional government. But there was a real serious conflict between supporting autocratic people who've been there for years and years, and then now going, because there was no question these people were not going to support a democratic government. They have enjoyed the goods, they've been there for years and years. So ECOWAS is struggling, just like the East Africa community. We rely a lot on outside help and support. And then it did not have the capacity to, number one, invade and create the immediate solution for the people. So I think, number one, it was the right thing not to go in by force. And then watch in space of time, give these people a very clear idea. We will not trade with you. You will not be part of us until you go back to the drawing table, so that then we are on the track of creating a constitutional government.
How do you think this whole situation will impact, for instance, the African Continental Free Trade Area? For this particular country is now withdrawing from ECOWAS. Will it impact this particular?
Well, you know, Fadia, we make one step forward in Africa and two steps back. And you know, right at the time we're ready to really take a move, something like this happened. So it will impact the East Africa, the South Africa, the North Africa. It will impact the entire continent of Africa. Because the East Africa can also become unglued. For instance, if DRC Congo decide to play its card, if Somalia and Ethiopia get in a war. So we're looking at, we are now at the East Africa community as a very powerful community. You know, I've been advocating for Somalia to be in as part so that we solve our problem together.
Right.
So we cannot then be able to solve Sahel problem under the umbrella of AU. Or a joint African force. It is somebody will have to jump in like Russia, what Russia is going to do. Now, when Russia go in and establish themselves, they will not move out easily. But what is going to be left out of there? Are they going to be better than France? I don't think so. And so those are the drawback for this continent that constantly happen. Is that there's no cohesive, forward-looking commitment, sacrifice in order for us to reach the stage on where we want. The impact of climate change is very serious right now.
Right.
It's ravaging the area. How are they going to get international aid if they behave the way they do?
Yeah.
Those are the impact that serious impact for the continent.
But we're already seeing the intention behind Russia, and it's not very good, as you would put it. Then do you think like an organization like the African Union should just sit back and watch it happen, or they do something about it?
No, you are right, Fadia. I think AU need to have a very clear statement. Russia, you're not welcome. Or if you come in through AU jointly. Demonstrate to us what is it that you have on hand, what you want to do. Are you going to help with the question of climate change, agriculture, education, healthcare? You know, let's understand it. But don't just come in by force in a vacuum and then settle there and control the situation and then continue to create autocrat in order to run this country. This is the continent of Africa. And so Africa cannot just stand and watch. Africa need to come out and make its statement well known to the rest of the world.
How long do you think this situation will last between the three countries and ECOWAS?
I think there will be mutiny and coups and a settled chaotic situation because people are angry out there. I mean, the situation is dire. There is no school system that is working. There is healthcare is down. Food situation is serious, and there is overgrazing with cows they have and goats and all that. And so that require emergency, and therefore it will be a very good idea if now AU take a lead, you know, and say invite Russia. And invite China and invite the rest of the people. Here's what we need in the country. But that can only happen with a consistent messaging and commitment of the leaders themselves, working under the umbrella of AU. But so long as they carry the gun and say we can take care of ourselves, it will not work.
That will be difficult. Away from the African Union, because it's the umbrella organization, let's talk about, like the EAC, you're talking about the blocks, the SADC, for instance, the southern one. Do you think they also have a role to play trying to convince these countries to come back on board?
Yes, and that's, you know, I tell you, people like Jamal Abdel Nasser, Kwame Nkrumah wanted, you know, Africa unite. But Africa could not just unite. Because Africa was ravaged by colonialism, who look at this situation very differently. We needed to go through the East Africa, the regional community. That's what people like Nyerere advocate for. And that's what I think is as a concrete way to develop block by block. So the East African bloc, the Southern African bloc, the West African bloc, the Northern African bloc, and then bring it all together. Simply for there. We are not a nation state. Even Kenya is not a nation state. We are a tribal state. And those tribal were the key. So how do you infuse them and say we are now the East Africa and we are now under Africa? So it's block by block. And you can begin to see it in East Africa. The trade is improving between Tanzania and Kenya, between DRC Congo, between Somalia and Kenya. And the more we do that, when you finally bring Ethiopia, we'll have 500 million population in the area.
Right.
With huge potential. And that's what we are looking for as far as ECOWAS is concerned. Nigeria is a huge economy, the #1 in the continent of Africa. Right. So the countries, the satellite countries, can benefit from that Nigeria. You bring Ivory Coast and you bring the rest. It is a way to go. But each country, you have to create capacity. Capacity to manage the people, governors, and all that kind of thing. And France left vacuum everywhere. That's the biggest problem.
Do you think, from what you're saying, I mean, looking back at the vision that Kwame Nkrumah and Jamal Abdel Nasser had on Pan-Africanism, that we are there or we are yet to be there as a continent?
No, we are not, unfortunately for there. I think Nyerere had it right. And Nyerere demonstrated that by uniting his country. If they did not go anywhere, I tell you, it is easier to take off, for Tanzania to take off right now and move much faster than most countries in Africa because they're working together. And while all of us, all other countries, is ravaged by travel and ethnic division. And therefore, what I think that happened is the more you accept that united thing, then Africa as a bloc become meaningful. Because Africa is the largest under UN umbrella right now. The largest in terms of countries that has a very powerful voice if they're united. But we're not, we are fragmented. And so long as we are fragmented, we cannot talk in uniform. And therefore we will continue to be exploited by everyone. Everyone is exploiting Africa. Congo, as I said, has $24 trillion worth of mineral.
Right.
Why is it the poorest country in the one of the poorest country in the world? How can anybody explain that?
A key question, of course. I mean, as we wrap up now the interview, what lessons then do you think African countries can learn from this situation with the 3 countries exiting from ECOWAS? #1 for there is overthrowing the government through unconstitutional means is over. There is not going to be, I can tell you, any country that's the military people are not trained to govern. They're warriors. They're trained to kill. They're given command. I've been around military people for a long time, and I teach them now. And therefore, when you just walk in the State House and say, I'm commander so-and-so, I'm in charge, then what is the next thing that you're going to do? So the military need to stay in the barrack and be part and parcel of development for Africa. 2, we need to focus on creating capacity, for our government. It won't happen overnight. It's going to take time. But when we create capacity, when people see education improving, when they see healthcare, when they see infrastructure development, then that government become important part of their mindset, and therefore they contribute more. Like South Korea, Singapore, Asian countries, you can see the way people think. Right.
And so that is what needs to happen. We need to stay away from aids, US aid, which is coming in Africa. We need fundamental relationship with the US, which means investment, corporate investment, government investment, working with Africa so that Africans can have capacity to take care of themselves. And yet we now have a very strong relationship for trade, for military, for those kind of things.
Right.
That's what needs to happen.
Right. Thank you. I think this has been a very, very interesting conversation. I really appreciate it. That is Professor Noah Midamba. He is a professor of defense and foreign policy. We're talking about the situation